So we are going to look at 12.2. There's not a whole lot to talk about, so we are gonna probably have two videos for this section, but the first video is gonna be all the terms that we need to talk about. So let's just get started. So here we wanna find measures of central tendency. So we wanna look for a number that kind of describes the data set. And so we might call this an average, but I put that in quotes because I want to be careful when I say average, the word average. But we basically want to think about a number that kind of genuinely or basically describes the set. So there are four such numbers we're going to discuss. Mean, median, mode, and mid-range. So I'll take each of these, we'll do a brief example, and then for the next video, we are going to look at some more examples of these four terms. All right, so first the mean. This is, if we say the word average, like you think about your test average, if all the tests are weighed the same, this is what we mean by that. So the mean is that typical definition of the average. So that's like you add them all up, divide by the number of things. If you have 3 tests in a class, you add those 3 tests, you divide by 3, that's your test grade. But the definition is the sum of all the data items divided by the number of items. It is the standard idea of what we mean by the average. So basically add all the things up and divide by the number. And it's a little redundant, but that's just the idea. Now the book gives the proper definition, but the proper definition is probably more complicated than what I just said. So if you don't want to memorize this formula as it is, you don't have to, especially if it makes things more complicated. But let me just tell you what this stuff is, so when you see it, you understand it. So X bar means the sample mean. Then this notation, this is a summation. The Greek letter is sigma. But what it means in math is to add up all of the things after it. So just add up all of the X's, add up all of the items. That's it. That's all that means. Just x1 plus x2 plus x3, etc. Okay, that's it. N is the number of items. Okay. Now, that's for the sample mean. Okay, if we're talking about some sample in a population, this is what we do. If we're referring to we take the entire population, and find the mean, that's what this notation is. This Greek letter is mu, it's a lowercase mu. Okay, so I don't think we're gonna get to that. So for now, until you see this again, anything we're talking about is X bars. That's why this is in parentheses. All right, so let's do an example. So here is a data set. There's 10 items, okay? The mean is to add up all of these things and then divide by the number of things. So it's going to take me longer to write it out than to actually do it, but I'm going to just show you what we're doing. I'm going to add up all of these things. Now, I told you there were 10 items. You might want to double check and count those. I will not show all of this work every single time I have to find the mean of 10 items or something. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. All right, so there are 10 things, so I need to divide by 10. If I type this in the calculator, I'll be completely honest, while I can do this all in one step, I'm going to do this in 2 steps, okay? I'm going to do the stuff on top first. We're going to add all of those things. I'm actually going to do this 2 times because as I type so many digits into the calculator, there's a good chance I made a mistake. So I'm going to do this again to make sure I got that number. If I got it twice, then it's likely I did it correctly. I could have also just made the same mistake twice. Okay. So 327 divided by 10, it's going to tell you to round a certain way. It may just say give the exact value, but we're just going to give the exact value for now. So 32.7 is the mean. Okay. All right. So I'm going to come back to this data set. We're going to use it again, but let's move on to the median. So the median is another good sense of the middle because, first of all, if you think about the word median, if you're a driver, then you know that in a boulevard, that space between the 2 lanes or the 2 directions, we call it the median. Okay, so think middle. And it is the middle, but it's not the middle in this sense that it's just the 5th or 6th term as it's written. We have to do something special first. We have to put it in order from smallest to largest. You could do highest to lowest, but no one ever does that. So lowest to highest. And in the way we're going to do this, that's the first step. If the the number of items is odd, then we take the middle term. If it is even, we have to find the mean of the 2 terms, of the 2 middle terms. So in this previous example, there are 10 items. So I'm going to have to do that step 3. Before I do step 3, I'm going to do a simpler example. We're going to do one with what, 7 terms, and then I'll do the previous page. So there are 7 terms. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I want to write that down. So there are 7 terms. So it is odd. Before I do anything, I have to put these in order. So we got to put these in order. First. Okay. I really should do that first, then recognize there's 7, but whatever. All right, so I'm going to rewrite this entire set down here. So the smallest number is 9. As I do that, I'm going to strike it out. And then I might leave some space so that if I made a mistake, I can squeeze something in. The next one I think is 14. Okay, any 20s? Yep, there's a 20 over here. So 25. Oops. Some more 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 70s, 73. We got 81, 82, and 95. So once I get fewer and fewer terms, it's easier to see what's next. All right, now they are all in order. The median is the middle term. Okay, I could count 1, 2, like there's 7 terms. I could count to 4. When I tutored a student in this material a while back, his process was to do the following. I'm going to use a red pen. He would scratch out pairs. So he'd scratch out those 2. Now he's going to scratch out those 2. Then he's going to scratch out those 2. And then this is what's left. It's the middle. So 73 is the median. 73 is there is a formula to find the location of the term. That is, the median is located at the n plus 1 over 2. I believe that's what it was. That would be 8 over 2, yeah, spot. But you don't have to know that. I feel like that's going to be confusing because that only works if n is odd. So parentheses, it's up to you if you want to memorize that. But I think this process of crossing out pairs is the quickest. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, so let's see what happens if I have an even set. So let's go back to this set here. I'm going to find the median of this set. So we'll call that example 1. Example 2, find the median of the set in example 1. So if you didn't leave much space, if you're taking notes, just pause the video, recopy that. Or if you want, you could recopy the ordered, because that's what I got to do. I wanted it on the same page. The next thing I have to do is order it. So I've got to order it first. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's see. The smallest one is 8. I'm going to try to put it all on one line. 8. We got 13 and then 19. We got 20, 23. We got 31. We got a couple 40s, 42, 47, and then 54 and 70. Okay, so I've ordered that, and now I can cross stuff out. Again, I'm going to cross out pairs. Every time I cross out one from the bottom, I have to cross out one at the top. And then I'm actually going to stop here because I've crossed out 4 here, crossed out 4 here. If I cross both of these out, I have nothing left. So because it's even, I take the stuff that's in the middle. We got to find the average of that, or the mean of that. Okay? So the median for this case will be 23 plus 31 over 2. 23 plus 31 is 54. Okay. Let's see. We get 27. By the way, if it was a decimal, you would just do the decimal. Like it could be 0.5. That happens, and that is okay. All right, so that's the median. Let's look at the next thing, which is going to be the mode. So the mode is the value that occurs most frequently. That is all that means. Okay. So the mode is the data value, the item that occurs the most. All right. What if there is nothing that occurs the most? For example, any example I've done today, there's only one of each. Okay. If there's a situation where there's not a term that occurs more than any others, we would say it has no mode. It is possible for a data set to have multiple modes. If there are 2, we call that bimodal. If there are 3, we call it trimodal. I'm sure you could keep going. If your data set is really, really large, you're probably going to have a few that repeat. But what I'll say about this is if you have a data set of 100 items and every item shows up 10 times, so everything is, there's 10 of each item, then we would just say there's no mode. They're all the same. And so, yeah, for this course, you're not going to see anything much bigger than 3 modes. I'd be surprised if you see 3 modes. Okay. So let's take this example right here. Let's find the mode. That's all we're going to do. If we're finding the mode, we do not have to put stuff in order. I'm just looking for repeats. That's it. Does 14 repeat? Does 12 repeat? It does. I'm going to circle it if it repeats. It doesn't mean it's the mode. I will eventually have to see which one repeats the most. 8, no, 7, no, 15. Okay, nothing else. So in this example, the mode is 12. That's it. Okay, that's a pretty straightforward one. I think the challenge for these 4 terms we're talking about is just knowing the definition. What is what? What is the mean? What is the median? What is the mode? And what is the mid-range? It's really all we got to do in this section. The next video will tackle some of the problems that are similar to the homework that will give you some trouble. So I'm going to do that in the next video because they take some time. But the mid-range is nothing more than taking a set of data in order, lowest to highest, and finding, let's see, the mid-range is just taking the lowest data value, the highest, and adding up. So why don't we just use this example right here? Get some more paper. So I'm just going to take that data set because I can see it. Here's an example. Find the mid-range of, I'll just write it out, 14, 12, 8, 7, 12, 15, 17, 1, and 43. All right, so all I got to do is find the highest value. I don't have to actually rewrite smallest to largest. It would help. Since this is a small enough set, I can just see clearly that this is the lowest. If the numbers are large, you might need to rewrite it. If the data set is large. So 1. Let's see, what's the highest? Well, the highest is at 14, no. The highest is right next door at 43. The highest. So 1 plus 43 over 2, that's 44 over 2. And so the mid-range is 22. It just means if we take this range, meaning these numbers span from 1 to 43, if we found the direct middle of that is 22. That's it. That's all that really means. Okay. This notation just means it's an interval, so if that confuses you, don't worry about that. That's the concept. All right, so we're going to stop the video there, and then I'm going to do some more examples of these 4 with frequency distributions.